Hello and welcome along to the Tennis Asia podcast. And we thought we'd actually do a traditional podcast this time around, as tennis has made its way back to this part of the world in recent weeks. We've had some standout performances, one in particular, which we'll be talking about in a moment. Joining us to tell us all about it is Mr. Tennis Asia himself. Eddie, how are you?
Good. Back in Korea, I'd been all over the place actually, including at the
Watching tennis, yeah? Watching tennis.
including also at the Shanghai Masters, which that feels like ages ago now. But unfortunately, it just happened to be that I had a lot of things going on personally during the key part of the tennis season for Tennis Asia. But anyway, I've made it back in time for the some would say maybe the most exciting part, which is the end of season challengers. But we'll talk about that a bit later.
We will indeed. So I was at the Seoul Open last week. I lost count of the number of people who came up to me and said, "Where is Tennis Asia? Where is Tennis Asia?" I came all the way up here to get him to sign my my autograph book, but I said, "I'll sign it for you." They were like, "No, you're all right." But yeah, let's move on. Let's start with the sort of the main news of the past few weeks from a Tennis Asia point of view, and it was in Chennai last week, a 250. And well, we have to talk. We talked several weeks ago about Janice Tjen. I think we also did one of her matches at the US Open as well. So Janice Tjen, 16 ITF finals, I think it was, over a 12-month period, winning 13 of them, coming from number 500, 600 in the world, got into the US Open qualifications, qualified, won the first round, got beaten by a former champion. It's true. Goes to Brazil, gets to a 250 final, comes to Asia, wins a 125, wins a doubles, I think, at 250 level, and pitches up in Chennai last week. Talk us through what happened.
Yes, it's Janice Tjen once again. I mean, yeah, you've described it there, a remarkable year that she's had. And I guess it was, fitting that on the last week of the year, she was able to come to Chennai and ultimately win the title, the 250 title, her first WTA Tour title. And yeah, it was a great performance and really just indicative of the year that she had. Actually, obviously she did win the title and she was very much a deserved winner in the end. But it was, looking pretty shaky for her early on. The second round, I mean, she came through against Caroline Werner in the first round in 3 sets. And then in the second round, she played Linda Fruhvirtova. And in the Czech play round of 16, but she had to come back from a set down 2-6, and then she was an early breakdown, so she was down 6-2 love early on, and you're maybe thinking it's not going to be Janice's day, but she quickly broke back and then came roaring back to win that second set 6-3. But again, in that final set, she went down an early break and had to, and I mean, she did come back very strongly. She took that final set 6-2. And yeah, just her bounce back ability is, something that's been, that she has shown this year. And I think that's definitely something, at this level as well, is something that she's developed that mental strength. And then she kept on going in the second round. The quarterfinal, I should say, was much more straightforward, 6-3, 6-1. And then it came into the semi-finals, where she had to face a player that we've talked about quite a bit on the podcast, the Thailand
Tennis Asia Bowl.
Yeah, so a player from Thailand, Lanlana Tararudee. And yeah, for her, this was a great run for her personally, because she's obviously still a young player herself. First WTA semi-final that she's made. She's still 21 years of age, and she's doing well here in Chennai. It ended up being quite an exciting match, and then obviously people were talking about it online. Fans in Asia. This is a Southeast Asian matchup. Yeah, you've got an Indonesian against a Thai player. It hasn't been so common on the tour in recent years. But here we are. And then, yeah, it ended up being a fantastic match. I mean, Tararudee, like Janice, is also quite a good athlete. A bit of difference in style for sure. I mean, I was impressed with how Tararudee was sort of, because, Janice has a bit of power herself, but she was able to sort of counterpunch, there's some of the attacks from Janice, and they played some great rallies. I mean, and as well, it was impressive from Janice's side, just, because we know that she's a good mover. She's got power as well, that forehand she can dictate. But on that backhand side, she was much more about the slice. But she was also showing some, really nice ingenuity in terms of, lobs and this kind of thing. Just making really hard to get balls. So it was an exciting match, and again, Tjen was in trouble because even though she won that first set in a tight tiebreak, coming through 8-6 in that tiebreak, she went into the second set and quickly went down 5-2, a double break. So it looked like the second set was away from her before she bounced back once again, like she did in that second round against Fruhvirtova, and she came through and won again in a tiebreak. And that was a tight one as well. I mean, Tararudee really gave it a good go as well, but that was another tight tiebreak, 7-5 in that tiebreak. And that set it up for the final, where she got through to play Kim Birrell. Should also mention that another player from an Asian country, we do have Joanna Garland, who, is of, she, despite the name, when we talked about her before, she's, I think she's half English, half Taiwanese, right? So, she
born in Stevenage, I think, and moved to Taiwan when she was 10 years old, I think.
But she's also a player that's sort of been quietly rising up the ranks, and so it was a good week for her as well, just to make the semi-finals, Joanna Garland, it'll be interesting. I think, looking at Tararudee and of course Tjen, but Garland as well. It's going to be interesting to see how they go into the next season. But of course. Anyway, back to Tjen. She gets to the final. She comes through against Kim Birrell, who is, of course, from Australia, but a player that we've talked about a lot, who's played in a lot of the.
She's the scourge of tennis Asia is Kim Birrell.
Yeah, but she's also another one that's had a pretty good year and a half, right? And her making this WTA final was big for her, but in the end, Tjen, it was a good final, but Tjen just a little bit too good in the end, and. It was just a great way for Tjen to be able to cap off, this event and this year. And it's incredible if you think about it. Obviously, we talked about her rankings rise. She started the year ranked 578 in the world. Now she ends the year on the back of this title, ranked 53, on the verge of the top 50. And dare I say, only just 3 spots off Alex Eala, who's another player from Southeast Asia, now ranked 50. Obviously a good year for her. She's hot on the heels of her, and it's going to be interesting to see now.
She didn't really round. She didn't round off the year. She didn't even round off the event, because after the singles, she had a bit more to do in Chennai as well.
Yeah, and that was
already done that in Guangzhou a couple of weeks ago.
Exactly. So that was another great story. Yeah, she did win her first 250 event on doubles, recently in Guangzhou. That was with the Polish player Peter, but this time she did it alongside her compatriot, was Aldila Sutjiadi. And they had played together before, had success, and they had to face off though against Monica Niculescu and Storm Hunter of Romania and Australia, respectively. They're the number 1 seeds, but they managed to come through against them 7-5, 6-4. So that was just a great moment. And it's got to be very exciting if you're an Indonesian tennis fan to not only have, obviously, Tjen coming through. It's been so long. I mean, her winning this 250 title was the first time since 2002 that an Indonesian player, had won a main tour title. And that was Angelique Wijaya back in 2002. So, yeah, now you have this doubles player as well in Aldila Sutjiadi, who seemingly has got a very good partnership with Chen, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see them play much more in the future.
They've been playing together a long time, haven't they? They won
Yeah.
a medal, I think, at the Asia Games a few years ago, and obviously this stands them in good stead. If you've got one very good singles player who can also do doubles with a good doubles partner, well, that stands you in good stead for international competitions as well.
Absolutely, and as far as I know, there's going to be not in the not too distant future is going to be the Southeast Asian Games. They have Southeast Asian Games, and you might think maybe at some points in the past would the tennis competition there be that interesting, but with the number of, especially on the women's side of these players that we've been talking about, perhaps it's going to be a pretty exciting competition now, because obviously you got Alex Eala, you got Janice Tjen, Sutjiadi, but then you've also got Tararudee we talked about. So there's definitely interesting to see how that goes in the future. But yeah, I thought it was interesting as well, because this was obviously in Chennai. Tararudee is obviously from Thailand, and she, I think, has been coached in the past by Paradorn Srishapan. Yes, so obviously, on the men's side, but he won several ATP Tour titles way back in the 2000s, and obviously was a bit of a legend because he also got some big scalps against some big players. I believe he actually won Chennai before, and actually was run-up a few times. So yeah, I thought it was interesting as well to see Tararudee do well here. Perhaps she can come back and maybe try and take the title like he did all those years ago. And but obviously amazing for Chen. I mean, if we go back as well and look at her record, she's won 77 and lost 15 this year. That's a lot of matches, It's a great ratio.
It is.
And yeah, obviously having, made the US Open for the first time and won a match there. But we shouldn't forget, this is her first WTA title, but she's won a total of 8 titles this year. 6 ITFs and then a WTA 125. Yeah, I mean, obviously, she's way above ITF level now, but still
say, do you think we'll get the chance to see her defend her titles in Goyang and Andong next year?
Probably not. I think she'll be gracious enough to give up the spot. But yeah, I mean, but
she might have other things planned at the end of April. Yeah.
If she got some time, she might turn up as a spectator for some support. No, but yeah, I mean, to win 8 titles is pretty remarkable. And I was listening to what she was saying that I think actually it was Chris Bint, her coach. He was saying that she doesn't know, or she didn't know too much about the rankings and the systems and all that when he started coaching her. And I think maybe she does know more about that now, but she mentioned that, when she doesn't really talk about stats and rankings with her coach at all. So, it's just the focus is just being on, improving each match and making sure that she's just playing better week in, week out. And obviously it's been working for her. And, from her point of view, long may it continue. And one thing I will say.
I could work out. No, go ahead.
I'm just going to say, obviously a tremendous year that she's had. She's got to be in the running for some of the WTA awards at the end of the season.
Absolutely. Moving on across to another tournament that took place in Asia last week, we mentioned someone who might be in line for WTA awards. Another one of those could possibly be the ultimate winner of the Hong Kong tournament last week, Victoria Mboko, who's also been probably the other great breakout star of the year. She obviously won the tournament in Hong Kong last week. On the way, I believe she accounted for Alex Eala. Tell us a little bit about what happened in Hong Kong.
Yes, it was ultimately, I mean, after several withdrawals, you had some big name players like Osaka, Raducanu withdrawing, but in the end, you had a big name and a rising star in Victoria Mboko winning in a pretty exciting match in 3 sets, 7-5, 6-7, 6-2. I mean, that second set tiebreak was very long and tight. And yeah, I mean, also Christina Buksha, maybe perhaps surprising people with how good she's been not just in this tournament, but maybe throughout the year. And yeah, I mean, we talked about Alex Eala obviously a lot in this podcast. I mean, she came through against Katie Bolter, and then in that first round, and then she managed to play Victoria Mboko in the second round, and it was actually a very exciting match. I mean, Eala did take the first set, and before Mboko came back to win the last two sets, 6-3, 6-4. But it was a very exciting match for the spectators in Hong Kong. And they seemed to be quite friendly, those two. So there was quite a warm embrace in the end, I think. I mean, Eala as well was up, I think she was up 4-1, wasn't she, in that final set before Mboko came storming back. So, yeah, obviously tough from Eala's point of view, but, she's, I mean, she lost to the eventual champion, a very clearly a player that's going to have a great career if she continues on this path. And yeah, in the end, it was an exciting, a good tournament for Hong Kong. And I should actually mention as well, in the doubles, we did have an all-Asian doubles final. And it was actually the Chinese pairing of Wang Yafan and Zhang Jinzhu, who won, she's Zhang Jinyu, who won the title 6-4, 6-2 against the Thai-Japanese pairing of Pyangtarn Plepuch and Momoko Kobori. Yeah, so Plepuch, by the way, I found out her nickname is Earth.
Is it really?
Yeah. Because she actually says it on the WTA audio when you listen to her pronounce her own name. She also says, "My nickname is Earth," and it's confirmed also on her Wikipedia page. So yeah, but Plepuch, obviously that's unfortunate, for her to lose again, because she's actually been in 4 WTA Tour finals as a doubles player, and she's lost all of them. The other 3 came, where they came?
I don't. Where did they come?
Here in Korea, in Seoul.
Oh,
so she made, Plepuch made the final 3 times in Seoul previously. Twice she played with Luxiga Kumkum, who I'm sure you know well. But
remember those days, yes.
Yes, but unfortunately, she's lost all those finals so far. So
2016, 2017, 2023, quite a that's quite a record.
Yeah, you just gotta keep going, I guess, and perhaps she can be, obviously she's from Thailand. Who knows? Maybe maybe can get some success at the Southeast Asian Games. And should just quickly mention elsewhere is that we also had the WTA 250 in Jiangxi. That was Anna Blinkova, who came through as the champion in the end in that tournament. And that rounded off the Asian swing. Although tennis has continued on the women's side in Asia, actually, in Western Asia. Because we got the WTA, the WTA finals, Riyadh, right? Yes. Yeah, continuing now in Riyadh, and then actually it's Elena Rybakina of Kazakhstan, who has won all her matches and has progressed to the semi-finals. So that's obviously something to keep an eye on of us. And she would be playing, and she has picked up form recently. She is going to be playing against Rybakina. Against Pegula tonight, Rybakina. So yeah,
she's beaten Swiatek. Now the final boss is herself. Yeah.
Well, in the other semi-final,
some of her fans may say that's true, but
indoors, you got to say that she has all the tools to win. But Sabalenka might have something to say about that. But also, we should mention as well the other semi-final, which should be on very soon. In the doubles is Ostapenko and Shea Su Wei. They're in the semis in those finals, and I mean, she's got, there's nothing else to say. She's a legend in this sport, especially in doubles. And Arenpenko, though, I've got a good chance, and it'll be interesting to see how they do.
Okay, well, I assume by the time we get this edited and up, that will probably be complete. Hopefully, looking for the final. Hopefully, we'll be looking forward to for Penko and Shea. Okay, we better move on. There has been, of course, not only have the women been in Asia, the men have been in Asia as well. The Challengers Tour made its way out to these parts. Seoul last week, Taiwan, I believe it is this week. The usual rotating cast of challengers. And at Seoul last week, the tournament was won by Sho Shimabukuro of Japan, but it was a bit of a big week for Coleman Wong as well.
Yeah, big week for him, but probably a disappointing one as well. Because Coleman, he did make the final, and he beat like Chung Yan early on. He had good results, Coleman, and also beat Shu, the Taiwanese player who has been in good form, is always tough at this level, especially in hard courts. And he came through as well in the quarterfinals against Bu Yunchao-Kete, he's taken a bit of a tumble from the ATP level down to challenger level, but came through in straight sets, and then came through a tough match against Zhao Yi, who's the young Chinese player, in 3 sets. But he had to play Sho Shimabukuro, who is very much experienced at this level and has, several challenger titles now. But it was too much for Wong. I don't think he quite brought his best, but Sho's experience doing him good here, coming through 6-4, 6-3. And it's now, I think that's the 4th challenger title that Sho has won. So obviously great for him. But for Wong, it's now the 5th challenger final he's been in, and that he's lost as well. So having been in 5 finals and lost them all, it doesn't fill him with much joy, I'd imagine. But I suppose making the final is not too bad, given his previous weeks post US Open.
Just looking at his sort of body language afterwards, after the match, he didn't seem that downhearted. Like looking at the pitch on the court with his coach, and things like that. I think maybe it's a positive. I think his first serve sort of fell apart in the final. But other than that, I was impressed with him in the week. It was the first time I've seen him live for a year, since the same tournament a year ago. Very sort of different sort of aura watching him these days. Obviously, doing so well at a US Open will do that to you. But sort of very, very fast, very aggressive sort of tennis. Actually, quite entertaining to watch as well. Certainly, a lot of the times at Seoul, there's a lot of a lot of baseline slogging, waiting for the opponent to make a mistake, kind of thing. But suddenly, he was very aggressive, going after the points, losing a lot of points as a result. But actually, very entertaining to watch. And he has sort of carried it over this week in Taipei as well. I think he's through to the semi-finals in Taipei.
Yeah, and he will be playing Duckworth tomorrow. It's Friday now here, but he'll be playing tomorrow and Saturday. James Duckworth is, of course, a very good player at this level. He's won many challenger titles, and has been up at that sort of ATP level. But he hasn't won an ATP title. He lost 1 final. That was to Kwon Soon Woo, actually. But Coleman Wong, he definitely does have a chance. And I think, as I mentioned, like, he had a string of losses after the US Open. He did great at the US Open, of course, coming through qualies and then getting through to the 3rd round and then losing a tight 5-set match against Andrei Rublev. I mean, I guess it's maybe sometimes after you have a big run like that, there can be a bit of a hangover. I don't think he was getting like wiped off, like he wasn't having terrible results. I mean, they weren't like, he wasn't getting thrashed or anything, but, some 3-setters here and there, but he was losing. And then I think, obviously when you've got that and then you make the final, it probably feels good that you're, and you talked about his aggression. I definitely think, and he's got a new era of confidence about him. He knows that if he can play that aggressive brand of tennis and he's, everything's clicking, he's a really tough opponent to play. And that serve as well, when it's working, is also it, it makes him a difficult opponent. And yeah, also in the other semi-final, it's James McCabe against Nishioka. So yeah, it's a tough challenger roundup there. And like James McCabe, I should mention as well. I mean, obviously, we might have some Filipino listeners. He was actually born in the Philippines, although he's Australian. I think he's maybe half Filipino, right? So, but yeah, I mean, interesting semi-final there in Taipei. Should also mention as well, because there is actually another challenger going on in East Asia in Matsuyama, right? The Matsuyama Challenger. And that's Sho continuing his good form. He's into the semi-finals where he'll play Ryan Peniston. The other semi-finals is an all Portuguese affair where you've got Enrique Rocha against Federico Ferreira Silva, who's the player you saw have a controversial win over Nishioka in Seoul.
It wasn't really a controversial win because Nishioka absolutely deserved to lose that match. He had ample opportunities to win the game. Yes, it was a very controversial line call on match point, which was also had the misfortune to be the longest point of the match as well. It went on for seemingly hours until it finally the ball, I don't know, may have clipped the line, may have been out. It was called out. Yoshi did not agree, and he made his feelings on that quite clear, and he did not wish to leave the court. We'd actually seen a couple of meltdowns that day because poor old Tara Daniel absolutely fell to pieces against Zhao Yi a little bit earlier in the day. He won the first set tiebreak, a long tiebreak. And then in the second set, he got broken quite early, but it still was nothing lost. But his game completely went to pieces, and he managed to. At one point, he managed to clear the stand with a ball, which is, I mean, you're very familiar with that centre court at Seoul. That's a big court. It's not easy to hit the ball over the top of the stand. Tara managed it, and then he had a full and frank exchange of opinions with his racket at the end of the game after losing match point. So it was quite a dramatic few hours on centre court last Thursday, I think it was, in Seoul.
Yeah, I think you mentioned as well, Taro caused a car alarm to go off.
Yeah, well, so the car alarm started going in the background, and there was a little bit of chuckling going around. And it's like, come on, did he really? Just brilliant, just absolutely brilliant. It wouldn't stop either, that alarm. It just kept going and going, going and going and going. So I hope they had some insurance. What I will say about that tournament in Seoul, obviously we've been going to that tournament off and on for several years. I was really surprised last week. I didn't go to the final, but I've seen the pictures from the final, and the stadium looked very, very busy. But even on Thursday, there were a lot of people there. Even on the Monday, there were a few hundred in to watch Chung Hyun in the first round.
Yeah,
It has really come on. They're charging for entry, but they're charging a sensible amount for entry. It was 15,000 won, which is about $10 or whatever to get in. And it was a very well run and very, very entertaining tournament. Does seem to be a huge appetite for live tennis in Seoul if it's marketed right.
Yeah, and yeah, I'm glad you reminded me to talk about that, because obviously we know that there has been an increase in tennis in Korea in the last several years. We've seen it grow, and we've seen some great crowds. I'm just interested because I remember we went to the Seoul Challenger last year. I don't remember the crowds being particularly great last year compared to, because I think the previous year they had more. And so, yeah, I was a bit surprised just to see how many people were at that final day. And yeah, I saw that quote, which I saw according to Tennis Korea, which is a tennis magazine in Korea. John Blom said that, he's been on the tour for a long time. John Blom is the Australian tournament supervisor for the Seoul Open this year. And he said, he doesn't remember like a challenger tournament having such a big crowd. And the official numbers was 15,000 over the whole week, but 12,000 was over the weekend. But obviously that's quite a lot of people just for a challenger tournament.
The stadium itself holds 10, I think, isn't it? Or...
Yeah, 10,000, I guess. Yeah.
Mm. I mean, it is very much a sort of, obviously you've got a lot of courts there. Court 2 and Court 13, which are the other two that they use for those tournaments. Really, they are bus shelters. The stand. I mean, they're not like show courts in any way, shape, or form. It is just the one court. And as we've talked about, it is elderly. It is dated. The facilities inside are probably not up to scratch in terms of, you know, the bathrooms. There aren't that many of them and things and things like that. I don't know what it's like too much behind the scenes. I think you've been behind the scenes there a few times. But it is big. It gets the people in. Yeah, it was deeply impressive to see that number of people. The tournament also had a title sponsor, which wasn't tennis connected as well. I think in the past it has had sponsors, but they've all been sort of connected with the tennis industry. This time it had Eugene Securities, which is obviously a financial institution. I did hear from people who have Eugene accounts that Eugene was actually sending out messages advertising the tournament to their customers and things like that. So there was word getting out. Also had television coverage as well. The final was on TVN Sports.
Right, and it does seem that they've drawn in more and better sponsors this year. I did read about that. And I mean, of course, we had the WTA 500 recently, which would have received a lot of attention because it was Iga Swiatek, and they had a big crowd there. So perhaps, you know, some positive effect from that on this tournament in terms of people just out there wanting to get some more of a taste of live tennis. Well, it's just a shame, isn't it, really, that, you know, this is going to be the biggest tournament. Well, on the men's side, actually, that's not technically correct because I think the Busan tournament is a 125.
It's a 125, yeah.
But yeah, it's still just a challenger tournament. And then obviously on the women's side, we do have the Korea Open, but that's going to be downgraded to a 250 next year. But Singapore does get that 500 spot, so good for them. Yeah,
I'll be looking at Singapore's final day attendance very, very closely next year.
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, let's see what players they get in. They might get some decent crowds. Let's see, but yeah, but I mean, it's obviously impressive as well. You know, they're getting those crowds in Seoul, despite them having no Korean players, you know, in those finals as well. So, yeah, that's another interesting factor. Challengers do continue, though.
Very positive. They do. I was going to say, what's up next for the challengers? So once we've got the tournaments complete this week, well, who knows? Coleman might be saluting with his first challenger title come Sunday. What's on the agenda coming up?
Yeah, and as the bulk of tennis is coming to a close, obviously with the WTA finals and the ATP finals, and we still have tennis going on in Asia, and you know, throughout the world, I should say, really, for the ATP Challenger Tour. Yeah, this week, obviously, we talked about Taipei and Matsuyama. That's continuing. Next week, we have Kobe Challenger in Japan, and the following week, we'll have the Keio Challenger, which is held in Yokohama in Japan. And the week following that, there's two tournaments in Asia, but there are parts of Asia that, you know, maybe not so common for tennis tournaments.
You were going on your, was it Expedia or whatever? You were searching flight tickets, and you even managed to get a quote. Where were you going?
Yeah, so there's a Challenger 50 being held in the final week of November in Islamabad in Pakistan. Yes, and I thought, wow, that's an interesting one. And then we've also got one held in the same week, another Challenger 50 in Bahrain, in Manama. So yeah, unusual locations, but and also quite far for us. One in South Asia, one in West Asia.
I'm not sure how I'd go smuggling my cans into centre court in Manama in Bahrain. Actually, I'm not sure that would go down particularly well. One thing I'll also say about that Seoul Open last week, the official Instagram channel was sharing pictures of people. You know how they like to take their selfies holding up their beer cans or beer bottles in front of the thing. The official tournament Instagram was actually sharing pictures of people doing that and encouraging it, which I thought was quite funny. They didn't
Wow,
share
that
mine.
is
They didn't share
interesting.
mine though.
Yeah, but I mean, you should say, going back to Islamabad, I mean, looking at the entry list, there are some names who have entered which are of note. I mean, we have Elias Emer, who's been doing okay in this latter part of the season. Jay Clark of Great Britain. He's been around for a while at this level, and he's chosen to put his name in. Also, Leo Borg is there, the son of the great Bjorn Borg. But what was interesting is that there's only seven alternates for the main list. And yeah, of course, you can see that many tournaments go through those very easily, usually more than that. So once that's down, who's going to be playing in that tournament? Who knows? There's probably perhaps some local players that have barely got any experience, but yeah, maybe there'll be some interesting wild cards thrown in. Let's see, but it's only a Challenger 50. Yeah, I mean, probably nice for the if you're a tennis fan in Pakistan, there's really going to be a few chances to see that up close. So I mean, good for them to have that. And the season finishes in Pakistan and in Bahrain.
And before you know it, we'll be building up to Australian Open qualifying very, very soon. Okay, any other business before we wrap up?
No, just obviously reflecting on that, it's going to just be interesting to see who's going to win. I mean, I talked about the WTA awards because you have the most improved player, and you also have newcomer of the year. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I would imagine that Victoria Mboko's got to have a pretty good shout, maybe on the newcomer or most improved. I'm not sure, but then so would maybe maybe an Alex Eala or a Janice Tjen. So we'll have to see. Obviously, Eala will have she had that great run in Miami, and she's had her moments throughout the year, US Open as well. But Janice, in terms of just sheer consistent rise, she's got to have a shout for the most improved player, I would imagine. And yeah, it's going to be interesting. It'll be nice if she's able to get that recognition. And also, it's interesting because I was just thinking about it's very different in terms of like she's sort of quietly come up like that. I don't think she's got like a huge amount of attention yet in her home country. Obviously, it's a big country. Should also mention though, she did also get that she's been signed to IMG,
Right,
which some people have mixed opinions about, but obviously a big agency, and it's just an indication of how well she's done. So and how much people think she's going to have a future in the game. So be interesting to see if she does get that recognition, get an award, it might get a bit more attention for her. It's different from Alex Eala. Obviously, she's been having a lot of attention since she was young, coming through Rafa Nadal Academy. And then, she's always had a lot of, I mean, I guess that's the only tennis player they've got really in the Philippines. And, some people think, well, she's been getting too much attention, but yeah, I mean, you can't really control these things a lot of time, right? So it just happens. And and that maybe though benefits Tjen to somewhat, right? She's gonna at some point, I think she's gonna break through next year.
Actually, I liked what you said about going back to that interview with the coach, where she doesn't really know much about the rankings. They haven't really been concerned too much about the rankings. I remember a year ago, going back to Coleman Wong, his schedule around about this time of the year was dictated pretty much solely trying to get into those next gen finals, which ultimately I don't think he managed to do. But it meant he was using, obviously being the age he was able to get the entry into certain tournaments with that particular goal in mind, which may not have been beneficial to his overall schedule. Whereas with someone like Janice Tjen, where they've not really been concerned with the ranking, it's been concerned, okay, which is the best tournament to play next? Which is the best tournament to play next for the development, for gradually getting to that long-term goal rather than the short-term one in mind. I don't know if there's anything in that at all, but certainly doing it the way they have has paid off big time this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And for Chen, for Eala, and there's a few other players in Asia as well we can talk about on the men's side as well. But it's going to be interesting going into Australian Open, obviously after that break. I think it's going to be a tournament. It's going to be perhaps a few of them can break through it. So yeah, it's going to be just great once that eventually comes around. But before that, I'm going to be focused a bit more on the challengers.
Indeed. Okay. Thank you very much for your time tonight. You need to start thinking. Never mind those little WTA trinkets. You need to get thinking about the 10 for 26 tennis Asia rankings, as they're the most important ones, as we all know. And I'm sure we'll be doing those before the end of December. But until the next time, enjoy your tennis. The Riyadh coverage is about to start, I think, on TVN. So enjoy your tennis over the next few days.
Cheers.
Thank you.